US-Korea relations are important to both countries, and most likely are going to remain close and productive, but that should not be taken for granted. There have been times in the past, and I'm thinking of the 1980s, when anti-American demonstrations were common in South Korea. And future differences could emerge between the two countries. Washington and Seoul need to pay continuing attention to the relationship. I don't believe that US-Korea relations would have been very different over the next 3 years if a progressive South Korean president had been elected rather than a conservative. One piece of evidence to support that is that during the Korean presidential campaign, both sides endorsed the joint statement that had been agreed to during the May 2021 Biden-Moon summit. That is a detailed and ambitious blueprint for the relationship. And it's true in Washington as well. During a time when almost everything is subject to partisanship, there is strong support for the US-Korea alliance among both Democrats and Republicans. But in saying that the relationship is built on strong fundamentals, I'm not saying that it is unchanging. At a time when the global environment is in flux, it would be illogical to assume that US-Korea relations would stay the same. Over the past few years, those looking for points of friction between the United States and Korea have pointed to North Korea and China. But it's hard to identify any specific actual problems. Under Presidents Biden and Moon, there was close consultation on diplomacy towards North Korea. There were some in Seoul, as there were some in Washington, who urged more unilateral concessions towards North Korea to promote peace. But neither government got out in front of the other. Even when Moon Jae-in proposed his end-of-war declaration, the two administrations together discussed the merits of the idea. In the end, it did not go forward. And that is a sign of cooperation, not difference. On China, commentators have talked about the need for South Korea to choose sides between the United States and China, but there never was a single decision like that to make. In practice, rather than drawing closer to China, Korea has been diversifying its investments to reduce its dependence on China. And public opinion polling shows the South Korean public views China increasingly as a threat rather than as a partner. There's one other issue that's sometimes mentioned as a US-Korea problem, and that is the fact that regular joint military exercises have not been taking place as they used to. Now, those who hold the Moon administration responsible for that seem to have forgotten that it was President Trump who suspended the joint military exercises, and he did so without consulting South Korea. That one's on us. Going forward, the US-Korea agenda is expanding. The urgent issues before us include climate change, securing supply chains, defending democracy, and dealing with technological advances. Because the United States and South Korea are both advanced democratic free market economies, they're going to agree more often than not on what needs to be done. That said, there are three aspects of the US-Korea relationship that will require particular attention. One is a challenge created by the change of gears between a strictly bilateral relationship and multilateralism. In the past, it was enough for Washington and Seoul to talk mostly about bilateral issues. In a break from the past, the Biden administration seems focused on flexible groupings of countries to deal with common challenges. More and more, the US-Korea conversation is going to be about which groups of countries should carry out which tasks. That will be something new. Second, Korea remains predominantly a trading country, while the US seems to be pulling back from expanding trade. The Biden administration is highlighted by American policies, and in his 2022 State of the Union message, President Biden did not use the words trade or exports. Korean investment in the US is impressive and mitigates, but does not eliminate, possible trade frictions. Despite talking about a new Indo-Pacific economic framework, the US seems uninterested in increasing trade volumes, and that is a break from the past. Third, it simply is a fact that the US has become an unpredictable country, and that also is something new. The Trump administration treated South Korea very differently from the Obama administration, and the Biden administration has executed another sharp turn in US foreign policy. It is altogether reasonable for South Korea to want to strengthen its relations with other countries to hedge against another possible shift in US foreign policy after the 2024 US elections. We would do the same if we were in their shoes. But in the end, the safest prediction is the United States and Korea will remain close friends and strong partners because they want the same thing, a stable, prosperous, and sustainable future.